on a breaking Big Blue. I'm your host, Jordan Ron on ESPN. ESPN.com. Giants reporting we're back with the Micah Parsons episode because, yes, it's the Dallas Cowboys trading their best player, right? Micah Parsons. I think we could all agree. Dude's dominant. Got paid a ton, but he goes to the Green Bay Packers, who, by the way, the Giants play this year as well. And we're all sitting here to laugh. Ha, 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 ha. I'll tell you why the Giants might not be laughing so hard at this deal. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll do a Giants 5 spot later. We'll address the biggest topics facing the Giants right now. They're taking off a few days for Labor Day weekend. But do the Giants have an Andrew Thomas problem? We'll get to that in a few minutes. But let's start with the Micah Parsons trade because I wasn't going to touch this or touch anything on the Micah Parsons situation. But now it directly relates and affects the Giants now that he is gone from the Dallas Cowboys. Because the reality is the Dallas Cowboys got back 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, who, by the way, is a 3-time Pro Bowler, really good player, really good defensive lineman, defensive tackle. Improves the Cowboys' run defense. Obviously, their pass rush, the threat of having a player of Micah Parsons' caliber all over the field is no longer there. He had his share of success against the Giants. So everyone else is sitting there laughing, ha, 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 the Cowboys, the Cowboys, the Cowboys. And I'll say this, for the short term, yeah, you should laugh at the Cowboys. Losing Micah Parsons makes them a worse team this year. In 2025, the Dallas Cowboys will not be as good. But now they have 2 first-round picks. They got 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. So they have 2 first-round picks in 2026 and 2 first-round picks in 2027. The way Jerry Jones looks at it, it's the Herschel Walker deal. Obviously not apples to apples. But it does put them in pretty good shape for the future. Gives them a chance to draft a lot of really good players and sort of rebuild and restock and have one more little run with Dak. Dak's 32 years old. Have one more little run with him from ages, let's say, 33 to 36. Try and win with him and move on from there and really fill out the roster even better because we all knew the Cowboys were still a good team. But they weren't, as long as Dak Prescott plays, they're a pretty good team. And they had Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Micah Parsons. They would have been pretty good. But they weren't good enough. That wasn't a team that was going to go win the Super Bowl. But what it does do is create the possibility that the Dallas Cowboys implode this year. Absolute implosion. The locker room's going to be furious. Everyone's going to be mad they got rid of Micah Parsons, or as Jerry Jones calls him, Michael Parsons. But yeah, everyone's going to be mad inside that locker room. It could create an implosion. It's going to be a toughie. Brian Schottenheimer, good luck, man. First-year coach, first time ever coaching. That is a tough spot to step into. Jerry Jones has put his coach in an extremely tough spot. I do not envy Brian Schottenheimer at all. But the Giants, how does it relate to them? They have a better chance to beat the Cowboys now. There are 2 meetings. Now, the Cowboys will still probably be favored week 2 in Dallas, home opener. Giants go there. I still expect the Cowboys to be favored in that game. As long as Dak Prescott's playing, they have the better quarterback, the better offense. They're going to be favored in that game. They also have 8 straight wins against the Giants, by the way. Dak Prescott never loses to them. But it gives the Giants a better chance. That doesn't affect the Giants' win. I actually looked it up before I started here. The Giants' win total was 5.5. Pretty much since March. And guess what? The Giants' win total is still 5.5. Micah Parsons getting traded does not change the Giants' win total at all. At least from when I checked, didn't change it at all. Now the Cowboys are at 7.5. I believe that decreased them. I'm not exactly sure what they're at, but I think it knocked them down a full game. So it does hurt the Cowboys in the short term for sure. We'll see what happens in the long term. It's not a terrible trade. If you look at value, that's 2 first-round picks and a Pro Bowl player is pretty good. But to do it now is where the Cowboys really screwed up. To do it now, the season starts in 1 week. They play in 1 week from today. I'm taping this on Thursday night. The Dallas Cowboys will be playing right now against the Philadelphia Eagles. They just traded their best defensive player. How do you think that is going to affect the team? Not well. So it increases the Giants' chances of beating the Dallas Cowboys this year. Puts the Cowboys in a decent spot moving forward, though, in that, yeah, it's a mini Herschel Walker deal. Now, the one thing is that barring something crazy happen, the Green Bay Packers will be pretty good. It's not like they're going to get top 5 picks. They're probably going to have picks in the 20s. Who knows? Maybe in the 30s. The Packers are not going to be terrible. they're not going to be bad. The Packers are loaded with talent. Now they added Micah Parsons. That is a team that can compete and compete seriously for a title now. And they need the Jordan Love, their quarterback, to play well. That's a story for another day. We're talking about how it relates to the Giants. And what it does is it gives the Giants a better shot in the division, right? And maybe they're not the last place team anymore. Maybe the Cowboys finish last. This is going to be a tough year for the Cowboys. Implosion is on the table after making this kind of move. I don't know if they calculated this into their equation, because I saw Jerry Jones talking, and he talked about, hey, we think we compete this year. Who knows? Maybe we're going to use one of these first-round picks to get someone, and maybe they do. But they're not getting Micah Parsons, because first of all, there aren't many Micah Parsons. Isn't another real Micah Parsons. At least someone with that exact skill set that could play all over the field like he did, rush from all different kind of spots. Maybe Abdul Carter could do that. The Giants hope he could become even 3/4 of Micah Parsons. That's how good Micah Parsons is. If he's as good or better, that's amazing. But you're talking about a perennial Pro Bowl player, all-pro player that is no longer part of the Dallas Cowboys. That, and if you think about it, and this is why I think the Giants are in much better shape, and then we'll go to the Giants 5 spot in a second. But if you think about it, though, the Cowboys have dominated the rivalry, absolutely dominated. 8 straight, and even going back further, they've dominated this rivalry over the last 10 years with the Giants. But here's the thing. One of the reasons I think that's been a constant, even though there's been changes in regimes in the Giants and players and this and that and the Cowboys too, Dallas always had a pass rush and a good defensive front. That they could dominate the Giants, and they've struggled on their offensive line. We know that. So that combination with DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons rushing the passer has given the Giants fits. Well, guess what? DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. He's older. He's playing in Seattle. Micah Parsons, he's now gone too. So if you're the Giants, you have to be ecstatic about that. Finally, the Cowboys' pass rush defensive front might not just abuse the Giants' offensive line. And therefore, the Giants might have a chance. Gives the Giants a better chance in their 2 matchups with the Cowboys beginning in week 2 in Dallas. I'll be there if you're going to be there. Hit me up if you are. Great trip. Dallas. Love that trip. On to the next one. All right, let's do a little quick 5 spot. This is where we go through the 5 burning topics going on with the New York Giants right now. And number 1 is we're going to start with Andrew Thomas, because Andrew Thomas did not practice on Thursday. He was on the practice field on Wednesday in pads. Said he did some individual drills, a little one-on-ones. Has yet to do team drills yet. He's going to be there on Friday, even though the Giants are off, and go through a workout again. So clearly trying to get ramped up for week 1, but the clock is ticking. And even Thomas admitted he's not going to rush it. When he's ready, he's going to go out there. He wants to be able to play at the level he thinks he can play at, right? And he has very high standards. So it's possible that Andrew Thomas is not ready right now for week 1. Now, which, by the way, James Hudson would probably start at left tackle. I don't think they would take Marcus Bowe and start him at left tackle in week 1 of the season. Probably not a great idea. Try to get through a game or 2 if you need to with James Hudson Jr. And really, there's no reason to sound the alarm yet with Andrew Thomas, right? It's taken a while, his ankle, to heal and to get better. And I think you kind of knew it was headed in this direction where it was going to get tight, because the original plan, as far as I'm aware, like I spoke to sources way back in the summer, and from what I understood is the goal was going to be to bring him along slowly, get him ready for that last preseason game that the Giants played in. Now, when he didn't appear at all in the preseason, he came back, he was just activated from PUP the week of the final preseason game. You knew at that point, okay, when he didn't make it back the week before for that second preseason game, that's kind of what I think they were aiming for. When he didn't make it back there, that was like, we're a little behind what they thought the schedule was going to be. Now, they're trying not to put any dates on it. They're trying not to rush Thomas, because it's way more important to have him there throughout the season than just specifically to be there for week 1. You push him from week 1, it hurts him. And they're like, look, they pushed Gunnar Olszewski. I have trouble saying that name. They pushed him last year to get ready for week 1. And what happened? He gets injured in pregame warmups and misses the entire season. That's the last thing they need. Now, I think the bigger concern with Andrew Thomas here, and I've said this from the start, It's not whether he's there for week 1. It's whether he can stay healthy through the season when he plays. Because big guys with foot injuries, and remember, he had an ankle injury to one foot. He had a Liz Frank surgery on the other foot. Injuries to big guys' feet is problematic, often long term. You're putting a lot of weight on those feet moving forward. So the bigger thing with Andrew Thomas, the bigger concern, even right now, even if he misses week 1, is can he stay healthy throughout the season? Not is he available specifically for week 1. But clearly the Giants, not as good a team without Andrew Thomas, maybe a slightly better positioned. Yeah, James Hudson Jr. can get you through a game and is better than Josh Azudu at left tackle. Marcus Bowe, also same thing. But it's not like they're super strong there. Their line as a whole is a liability if Andrew Thomas is not on the field and playing at a Pro Bowl type level. Because he's the only guy they have that's that level type of player. So, number 2, Giants named captains. 5 this year. All based on player voting. Russell Wilson, obvious one. He's the quarterback. The Giants have raved about his leadership all summer long. Actually, ever since they signed him. Feel that he brings a different level of attention to detail is what they keep saying. And when we asked Joe Shane actually the other day, hey, what have you learned about your team this summer? And the number one thing he said, and the Giants have been pushing this, is leadership. Oh, we have so much better leadership. We got him. We got guys like Javon Holland. We got Paulson Adebo. Like guys like that. Brian Burns is stepping into a bigger role. Bobby Okereke. Like that's what the Giants talked about. Leadership being the biggest difference. Now, I don't know if leadership is going to make you a winning team when you went 3-14 last year. You need talent as well, but hey, it can't hurt. Russell Wilson, captain number 1. Captain number 2 earns the respect of his teammates. He's the guy that a lot of guys go up to and talk in the locker room, very even keel, good dude, a really good human being. You tell why Darius Slayton is the second offensive captain. Also, by the way, Darius Slayton, longest tenured Giant, tied with Dexter Lawrence. So he's been in that locker room for years now. He has the ears of a lot of young players. Not an overly boisterous guy, but a lot of guys come up to him and ask him for advice, talk to him. You know, he was helping Malik Neighbors with his routes last year, of knowing what he was doing on the field. So I fully understand why Darius Slayton is the captain. Bobby Okereke, middle linebacker, captain. Your middle linebacker kind of needs to be the captain. Solid guy, smart. Second year in his defense, should be better. He was a captain last year. Him and Dexter Lawrence, both captains again this year. The 2 captains that are holdovers from last year's 3-14 team. Andrew Thomas is not a captain. He was all captain last year. Casey Kreiter, he is not a captain either. He was a captain last year. So Daniel Jones was also a captain. So I believe they had 5 captains. It was those 3. Dexter Lawrence and Bobby Okereke, they're both captains. Pretty self-explanatory. You need your middle linebacker to be the captain. Everyone knows that Dexter Lawrence, or they kind of attribute or consider Dexter Lawrence the best player on the team. So if you look at the best player at their position, it's probably Dexter Lawrence, especially with Andrew Thomas being banged up and injured. And that's probably why he wasn't named the captain, is because he didn't play last year very much. He's been injured the last couple of years. So you need your captains to be on the field playing and be influential players. Little question with Andrew Thomas. We talked about that a few minutes ago. And then the 5th captain is Brian Burns, second year with the team. He was a captain previously with the Carolina Panthers, he told me, for 3 years. So it's not the first time he's a captain. Well-respected dude. Really sharp guy. Played through a lot of crap last year. Think about it. A lot of little minor injuries. He played through it all. That is how you earn the respect of your teammates. And he's the guy, like I saw him today, chatting up Malik Neighbors, right? He was the guy who was in Kayvon Thibodeau's ear a lot of the time. Abdul Carter. So you could see why he has the respect of the locker room. And also, really good. The thing is, when you're in the locker room, you're talking to these guys, in general, you can tell why they're captains and why they're respected. They hold themselves in a certain way, not just on the field. It's the way they carry themselves and handle themselves in general. And you could see Brian Burns fits into that category. Topic number 3, the 53-man roster was set. Some minor surprise. Elijah Chapman being kind of surprised me. He's on the practice squad now. Gunnar Olszewski making it over Amir Smith-Marset, a little bit of a surprise to me. I thought Marset would get another chance as a returner because he was really good as a returner last year. Gunnar is the better receiver, no doubt. You saw that And he actually deserves another opportunity after what I said happened to him before getting injured in pregame warmups of week 1. We all knew he shouldn't have been on the field because he was struggling that week in practice. So him to come back, earn a spot on the team. He actually had to go through a tryout earlier in the summer, beat out a couple guys, return guys, just to get signed, and then goes out and wins the job. Kudos to him. Really good job by Gunnar Olszewski. Another really good dude, by the way. So that was one that really stood out to me. Art Green in the cornerback position, we knew they were going to make it. Nick Jones, though, making it at the cornerback position. That was a little bit surprising. Thomas Fidone also made it at the tight end position. And Greg Dulcich was kind of the odd man out. The problem with Dulcich was that it's a little duplicitous, meaning that he's kind of the same role as Theo Johnson. The Giants love Theo Johnson. So if Theo Johnson is that pass-catching type tight end, and I know he hasn't practiced, and we haven't seen him out there for a while, but which is probably a good sign that the Giants don't think he's seriously injured and might be back soon and has a chance, at least for week 1, is that they cut Greg Dulcich. And then Dulcich, they wanted him back, but then Dulcich had a choice between Miami and the Giants, and he chose Miami over the Giants. Miami, by the way, has Jonnu Smith and Darren Waller. Darren Waller, of course, who knows if he's going to make it through season? Who knows if he's going to play the whole season? So Dulcich decided that was a better spot than being with the Giants, where he was determined to be their 5th tight end out of 5 tight ends, because it was Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, who wasn't going to get cut. I know a lot of people thought he was on the bubble. I never sensed that from the start of the summer, talking to people in the organization. Never sensed that he was in jeopardy. He's a well-rounded tight end, can do a little bit of everything. He's solid. Not great at anything, but solid. 3rd is Chris Manhertz. He's the blocking tight end. He has a skill set that's way different than Greg Dulcich. And number 4 was Thomas Fidone, and he showed big catch radius, has some talent, came from Nebraska, had some serious injuries, got set back there. But the Giants didn't want to risk putting him on waivers and potentially getting claimed. So he makes the roster, and Greg Dulcich is the odd man out there. Interesting that the Giants claimed 2 players, one being Rico Payton from the New Orleans Saints. Apparently a really, really good high-end special teams player. Okay corner where you at least feel confident you could put him in and not be a complete liability. But he's going to have to go on IR. And then they cut Gunnar, but Gunnar's a vested veteran. He's just going to come back. So it's really just roster gymnastics. But to claim a guy and then put him on IR, that's a move. That's an interesting move. That doesn't happen all that often. So you wonder from the Giants' perspective, like, really, was it worth it? And it costs money. So to explain to your bosses, hey, we're going to take this injured guy, but we'll, claim him and put him on the active roster and then put him on IR. And so there's a lot of mechanisms there. Really roster gymnastics, but still a little interesting move. And they also claimed the safety from the Baltimore Ravens. They needed a fourth safety. Bo Brait is the guy they drafted. Also good quality special teams player. So those 2 guys are going to be special teams contributors. They didn't have a fourth safety. They only kept 3. And I kind of mentioned this. I didn't know who to pick. I just picked Kayvon Wallace as the fourth safety because you got Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin, they're the starters. Dane Belton, he's the third safety. He's going to play plenty. And then they didn't really have a fourth safety that you thought was going to make it. There was a couple young guys, Makari Page, Lane. Didn't really see that. Kayvon Wallace, a veteran. I just assumed, okay, he's probably the best special teamer of the bunch. But they cut him and claimed the safety and added him to the roster. They went deep at offensive line. Josh Azudu had to go on IR. He has a leg injury, from what I've been told. That happened in the second preseason game. That made room then for Aaron Stinney, who snuck onto the back end of the roster. Evan Neal, pretty safely on the roster. But by the way, to me, it's Greg Van Roten's job to lose. Starting right guard, left guard John Runyon, center John Michael Schmidt, right tackle Jermaine Illuminor, left tackle Andrew Thomas, assuming he's healthy. If not, likely James Hudson. That's going to be the starting unit. Week 1, Austin Slotman was the backup center. Bo Collins also is another interesting one. Made the roster, undrafted free agent. The Giants really like his blocking, and he's big, physical, can probably play some special teams. I think that's why he makes sense for them. But they are kind of thin at wide receiver. You don't feel great about them at wide receiver. After the top 3, you got Malik Neighbors, you got Darius Slayton, You got Wandale Robinson after that. Jalen Hyatt had an up and down summer. And, what are you looking after that? Gunner, Bo Collins. Do you really feel confident, if Malik Neighbors has to go out in a game, that those are your replacements? A little shaky. Wonder if the Giants keep an eye on that position moving forward. Obviously, if Gabe Davis did become available and become healthy enough to sign, I do think the Giants would be open to that. I don't know if that's Gabe Davis's choice. He went and made some second visits, and it wasn't with the Giants. So it doesn't sound like that's the direction that it's going to go, but I know the Giants would be open to it. Number 4, I wrote a story this week about the quarterback room. Obviously, the second they put that quarterback room together, everyone was talking about it. Wow, that's a really interesting mix of characters. You have Russell Wilson, right? The veteran, little into himself, just always positive, has that, he's just an interesting guy, but it could rub people the wrong way, right? You saw that in some of his previous stops. You saw that at the times in Seattle. You saw that in Denver. They weren't exactly beaming to bring him back in Pittsburgh either. So there were people in Pittsburgh who kind of soured on him as well. So you have Russell Wilson, then you have Jameis Winston. Huge personality, not afraid to speak his mind. A rookie you bring in, Jackson Dart, the guy with the aura. And then Tommy DeVito was there. Oh, by the way, Tommy DeVito on the 53-man roster, he obviously didn't make it. He was the odd man out. The second the Giants got the first 3 guys. DeVito, though, claimed by the New England Patriots. Jets, Patriots, those were probably the most interesting. But the Giants, for sure, were talking with DeVito about potentially bringing him back. If he had cleared waivers, it was the Giants' intention to bring him back to the practice squad and have him there as another resource for Jackson Dart. Those two are close. Tommy knows the offense well. They thought it would be a benefit in that regard. So, but he's no longer there. We know Tommy DeVito, New Jersey guy, a really good guy. Everyone thinks, Jersey, fist pumping. He doesn't even drink, Tommy DeVito. So he doesn't quite fit the stereotype. He's a really good young man. And he does know the offense well, and he's a hard worker. So probably would have been a good influence on Jackson Dart, which is why you want him there. But that is just a very interesting quarterback group. And can it work together? Can all those personalities work together? We saw the other day already on the field, Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors kind of going back and forth, getting very animated in conversation after practice. Those kind of things, you wonder how that's going to work. Neighbors and kind of brushed it off after, they worked it out in the locker room after, talked it out. But there are a lot of strong personalities, and Jameis is that kind of strong personality who can maybe say to Russell Wilson, hey, we all don't need to do, we all don't do it the same way as you do. You might do it that way, doesn't mean everyone else does it the same way. He has the clout to say that. Where Jackson Dart, he's a rookie. He doesn't, and then he can offer an alternative version to Jackson Dart. But strong personality nonetheless. Malik Neighbors, strong personality nonetheless. Just a very interesting mix. It'll be very interesting to see if it works and it fits, or it's a combustible situation and those personalities don't mix. Because not every personalities work together. There's been a lot of personalities. Look at Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers together. It was a combination that just didn't fit. Now, Brett Favre was so good, it worked for a while, and Aaron Rodgers came in, he was so good, it worked for a while. And so if you're good enough, it works. But it'll be interesting to see if the Giants struggle, how that mix of characters works out. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. And then there's a new locker room set up. They don't have a new locker room. The Jets have a new locker room. Giants do need a new locker room. That's one thing. I believe, if I remember right, the player survey kind of knocked was the locker room needed work. They still sit on these little stools, and 2 feet high. And you're like, man, those are like, 300 plus pound guy. Imagine you have a bad back, sitting in a stool, no backing or anything. So the locker room probably needs a little upgrade, and I've heard rumors that it's going to happen eventually. But in the meantime, what they did do is all the lockers have moved around. Guys are on different sides. But it is interesting to see some of the combinations that are there in the locker room, right? You see some of the veterans and younger players kind of mixed together, whereas I had it in my notebook somewhere, where some of the combinations, Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart are still in the middle linebackers that are usually reserved for guys that practice squad guys that sign or whatever. So I wonder if they eventually get moved to the outside. But the new locker room setup was kind of interesting. Malik Neighbors is next to Russell Wilson, right? So their lockers are next to each other. So you have a young guy who's still learning to sit next to a guy like Russell Wilson, who's solid, work ethic through the roof. Just watching him, his attention to detail. So to have him next to a guy like Neighbors is valuable. Darius Slayton, also in that area. He's next to Kayvon Thibodeau and Nacho. Raheem Nunez-Roches is next to, is in that area too. To sort of, you would think, guide and help out a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau. It's still a younger player in this league. And so there's a lot of interesting little combinations like that. I'll get a further detail. You know what? I'll map it out for next episode or one of these episodes further down the line, and we'll talk about the locker room setup because I think it's kind of interesting of how they put that together. Because clearly it's not just random. Wan'Dale Robinson's on the other side this year. Jalen Hyatt's next to a player like Brian Burns. Brian Burns just elected captain. It makes sense. Have a guy like him in Jalen Hyatt's ears and things like that. So that's seems to be the thinking of how the locker room was set up, with clear intention of having veteran guys next to guys that they want to help other, the guys that they want to be helped out, who they feel maybe need that guidance or that extra little person chatting in their ear. So your locker mate is actually kind of interesting. I feel like guys get close to the person that their locker is next to because they just spend a lot of time talking to them. They just sit at their locker. They spend a lot of downtime at their locker throughout the season. So I'll put together a little guide or map of the Giants locker room as we move forward here. That being said, on to the next one. All right, we're going to close here a little quick. Jordan on the beat. This will tell you what it's like to cover the Giants, work for ESPN, or cover the NFL in general. I'm going to go over, we had a little fun this week, okay? So I'm hosting the morning show, DPH on Rothberg 880 ESPN New York, and we decide we're going to pick a word every day. And I'm going to have to try to find a way to sneak it, shoehorn it in to a press conference with Brian Daboll. Or on Wednesday it was Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, so it was directed to Joe Schoen. So came up a bunch of words ranging from mollywop, jettisoned, lickety split, and brouhaha. And somehow I managed to get them all in. Now, the final one wasn't so smooth, and it started to raise some red flags, but successful nonetheless. Had a little fun with it. If you want to listen to it, go ESPN New York app, DPH and Rothenberg Show. Check out the podcast there. They're all available from each of the days. You'll be able to find it. They'll be tagged so that you could find out, Jordan's word of the day and how I found a way to put it in. It was a fun little, bit that we did throughout the week. And, it's interesting. I thought the Giants and Brian Daboll would catch on. And I thought even coming into the last day, especially when I had to do brouhaha. And I said brouhaha the final day, and Brian Daboll looked at me like, huh? What'd you say? Like, that's a ridiculous word to try to fit in a press conference. I was like, yeah, I know you don't want guys getting any brouhahas the next few days. But he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you don't fight, so you're get in any trouble. So how? What do you expect from them these next few days? You have a bunch of days off, like for them to, how they handle the little mini break and getting ready for the season. And he answered the part of the question that was relevant. The first part was just kind of throwaway little comment. And that's kind of was my philosophy. Have like a little throwaway precursor comment at the beginning and then get directly into the question and mumble it and get it real low, but to say it real quick and then just get to the question part on the back end and emphasize and highlight the question on the back end. And then all you're concentrating on is the question at the back end, not the little precursor at the beginning where I say, a little brouhaha, get a little brouhaha. What do you want your players to do? Right? And you're concentrating on the what do you want your players to do part. But we thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty good. I'm kind of proud of myself. I think I crushed it. The fact to get those 4 words in. Mollywop, not an easy one. Got it in with talking about the way Elijah Chapman delivered some hits from the fullback position. Jettison, that's easy because, guys were cut. Talked about Tommy DeVito potentially, getting cut and threw in the word jettison. Lickety split. God, I forget how I even got that one. And that was not. The summer went lickety split. It went over real quick, and then I got to the question right after that. What did you take the most from this group? What did you learn from this group? And that was to Joe Shane. So the lickety split part was like mumbled in a little bit, but there was one of the Giants PR women. I guess PR. I don't know, worker, employee, lady, and she is in charge of transcribing the press conferences. And apparently she started realizing a couple days in, like, what are these words? Something's got to be going on here. And then especially the last day, like, brouhaha was just like, okay, what's going on here? But I think lickety split kind of gave it away on Wednesday. And so apparently she kind of knew what was going on here, and it had been mentioned by the PR staff. So shout out to her for realizing what was going on there. But we had a little fun with it, and it was a fun little week. So you want to check it out? Make sure you go to the ESPN New York app. It's in the App Store. You'll be able to find it pretty easily, and it's pretty easy to navigate on there. And it's a tough week. I was waking up at 4:12 a.m., driving to the city Monday to Friday, did all 5 shows, the morning shows that they're filling in with Dan Grasso. It's been a lot of fun. 4:12 a.m., I'm waking up. I'm going to the studio, driving to Manhattan, driving to New York, doing the show, then going to the Giants, working and covering the Giants. So it has been a long, tiring week. Now we get some days off, just like the Giants. Taking off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They'll be back Monday. The Giants actually only have Zoom availability on Monday, so we'll be back. And they have their normal Tuesday off. So 4 of the next 5 days off. Then get into the grind for the season starting Wednesday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Week 1, Giants at the Commanders, division rivalry. Giants going to have to steal one of these first 2 games. I'm telling you, it'll get ugly. Everyone will be calling for Jackson Dart if they don't win one of the first 2 games. Commanders, Cowboys. Cowboys game now becomes a little bit more winnable. So, and you look at the Commanders game, that's a team they played tough last year. I know the Commanders were the better team, didn't punt once when they played in Washington, even though the Giants didn't have a kicker either. But, maybe week 1, teams could be vulnerable sometimes. Maybe, Terry McLaurin, a little rusty, didn't have a whole summer. But, yeah, still, they have Jaden Daniels. That's a very dangerous team. Actually, I saw they were, I believe, one of the oldest teams, if not the oldest team in the NFL. That's how much veterans. And look, they added Laramie Tunsil this offseason, a veteran left tackle who's been proven. Debo Samuel. They have Bobby Wagner at middle linebacker. So they are made to win now. That's a win now team with a young quarterback who, has an extremely bright future. So it's going to be a tough game. Giants 6.5-point underdogs. You know what? Next episode, we're going to do over-unders. Also, make sure you listen every Monday night. It's going to be Tuesday this week, I believe, because it's a holiday weekend. But Breaking Big Blue is on YouTube in collaboration with Giants Nation Show and Bobby Skinner, myself, and Bobby. Sometimes it might be me, Bobby, little bit and pieces, both of us together. Who knows? You never know what you're going to get. But make sure you catch it on YouTube. Monday Night Madness every week. Either Monday this week, Tuesday, but generally Monday nights. Make sure you tune in. As always, like, subscribe, tell your friends. I'm Jordan Ranan. See you next time.